Hey, welcome. So we've made it to another video, and I promised you guys that we would start doing a little bit more Baccarat content. We did a Baccarat video within the last week, but we kind of got carried away with some other stuff that people were requesting. So here we are. We're back in the world of Baccarat. And Baccarat is one of the games that we really focused on tremendously when we first started the channel, as well as our first website. And since then, obviously, we broadened our horizons and we've been able to really move forward with the other two asset classes, roulette and definitely craps. But I want to let you guys know I've never forgotten about the passion that people have for the game of Baccarat. As much as it's become more difficult due to a bunch of things, due to the casino manipulating and playing games with the decks and the cards, as well as the use of electronic pre-sorting, or shall we say shuffling, and a few other things such as increasingly high limits on the minimums to play in most casinos for Baccarat if they don't have a stadium setup. But the game is still amazing. It is probably, in my opinion, one of the most challenging of the three games at the moment to be able to consistently beat. But that does not mean that we're not up for the challenge. So before we get started in today's demo, I want to do a review like I said I was going to do. So if you go to the website and you go to digital courses, there are several courses that we've come out with in the last year that people are utilizing to be able to turn Baccarat into a profit stream. Now, I want to be very careful by saying this. There is no holy grail bet selection for Baccarat. The way that you make money is exactly the same way that we explain for all of the asset classes, which is testing and finding the strategies that are working for you, determining what the minimum or conservative win targets are, finding the money management or progression that keeps you as close to break even without getting your bankroll in trouble, and grabbing and capturing those profits and repeating the process over and over again. Now, of course, we teach the toolbox method, and that can be learned right here. Okay, this is our premier course, Casino Diversification Toolbox. This is our business and strategy primer, which contains Baccarat, roulette, and craps strategies. This is where it all begins. But then when you want to move forward, because again, we do not believe in a one strategy concept. We believe in a rotation of those concepts. So you can utilize the Baccarat that's in Casino Diversification Toolbox, and then combine that with the strategies that you're learning in either Baccarat Squared, Baccarat Revolution, which is our latest course, right? Even Money Cycler, which is phenomenal, that uses probabilities, and what we learn in Even Money Cycler can be used for any even money bet, but I love it for Baccarat, all right? So those are the premier Baccarat-related strategies that are currently available. And I also forgot about Baccarat Equalizer. This one is awesome. There are many people that are still using Baccarat Equalizer, and combining this with the Baccarat strategy, the Baccarat 32 Revisited or 2.0 in here, and they're using those two strategies along with Baccarat Revolution in a rotation to be able to make money on a consistent basis for the game of Baccarat. All right? So we're also working on some things right now that you're going to see in 2026 for the game of Baccarat. And we're very, very excited about what we're working on right now. All right. So those are the courses you can check out. If you're interested in purchasing a combination of those courses, reach out to me through the support tab, and I will give you a special price, a bundle price, if you're buying 2 or more. All right. So let's get on to our little demo today. I've been looking forward to this one. This is going to combine 2 things that are very interesting. One is one of our favorite money management concepts that we use over the last 6 months. We have customized it and used it for many different strategies, and we call it the faction system. And we'll go into that in a minute, but let's talk about the bet selection first. So the bet selection I'm going to be using here is very unique. It is not something that we created. It's something that was brought to our attention by some of our pro players that play Baccarat for a living that they've been using. I don't know where they got it. I'd be more than happy to tell you, but I don't know if it's from another YouTuber or it's something that they read. I don't know. But the reason I'm using it is it's very, very simple, and they're having success with it. So they're using this in their rotation of Baccarat strategies, but I'm going to be using it for the first time to combine it with the Faction 3 system. Okay, so if you're not comfortable with the Faction 3, this is going to be a good time to learn one of the most powerful money management concepts that we've been using for the last year, because it is customizable. We'll get into that in a minute. All right, so what we need to do is we need to throw out some virtual results here. And I'm going to show you how this bet selection works. All right, let's see what's going on here. All right, so we're going to look at the main board. And we're going to call these columns, right? We're going to refer to this as a column. So that's column 1, right? And we're going to be always looking back 2 columns. All right. So here's 2 columns, but we have to make sure that the most recent column is completed. Okay, is completed. What do I mean by that? What I mean is it going to be another banker and it's going to be a drop? Or are we going to move over to the next section here because it's going to be a chop? And then we're going to be able to figure out exactly what we need to do for our bet selection. All right, it's a banker. So it dropped, right? It dropped. All right, so in this case, we have to wait for this column to be completed. So we have to have 2 completed columns to be able to have a bet. So what we need now to have a bet would be for this now to jump back to player. It'll make sense. It's very simple, guys. That's a tie. That doesn't matter. All right, banker. So we're still dropping here. So which means that the 2 columns have not completed. This column has completed, but this one has not. So we don't have a bet yet. Banker. It's still going. We're still on a streak. Nothing we can do yet. Patience. Player. Here we go. All right, so we now have 2 columns that have completed to look at. And what we're going to do is we are going to look back at those last 2 columns. Now, you see this as a player. So the last player over here was a single, meaning that it did not drop, right? It did not drop. So we're going to play this as if it's going to not drop again. So that means our bet selection is going to tell us that we are going to be betting for a banker, so that it mimics the last time a player was here where it didn't drop. We're going to be betting for a banker. So let's go back and we're going to bet, and we'll just use $10 bets. we're going to bet for banker. All right, and we lose. So this is now where we can get into the faction 3. All right? All right. So faction 3. You don't get into the money management until you have a loss. We just had a loss, right? So we're going to put an L here. So the way the faction system works, and I'm using it with a 3 block, so we're going to call this faction 3, is we slow up the progression. This is not a martingale. This is not the Lambert. This is not Fibonacci. This is the faction system. Slow crawl, which means that we are not going to increase the bet because we've only lost once. We're going to finish either 2 or the entire block of 3. And you'll see what I mean by that in a minute if you haven't seen this before. Okay. So here we go, right? Now, it did not work, right? We lost. We're going to do one more. We're going to try for one more, and then that's it in this section, right? So we're going to try for one more. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to once again say it's going to be a banker, right? That's all we're going to do is allow ourselves to be wrong twice. All right, so we're going to do $10 once again on banker. Okay, and we won. So watch this. The way it works in the faction 3 is that anytime we have an L and a W in the first block like this, even though the banker pays less when it wins, I know it's not even money, right? We're down by 50 cents here, right? I don't care. When we get an L and a W in the faction 3 here, we're going to consider that a break even and take us back out of the money management. All right? We're going to be back out of the money management. All right? Because we don't care about the nickels. Now, back to our bet selection. Let me explain this. So what ended up happening on the last time, right, the 2 before, is that the banker repeated. It dropped. So now we're going to play this banker, right, as if it's going to repeat the drop. Okay, the drop. We're going back 2, right? We're always going back the 2 before, and we're going to see if it's going to repeat this drop. So we're going to play for the banker to drop. And we're back to our base bet. Okay, it wins. We're up 1 unit. Now, when you win, you can't do anything because we're still in this column. We need to have this column finished to be able to look back too. So we're not going to do anything but wait for this to jump. And it does. So now we can look back the last 2 that were completed, and it tells us that the player did drop. So we're going to play for this player to drop. Okay? And it does not, which triggers us into the faction 3. So we're going to put an L here in our block. We know we're not going to progress up. We're just going to make the same bet for one more time. One more time. So we're going to repeat the bet and see if it works. And it doesn't. So we're going to put an L here, right? Which means that we have to finish the block of 3, the faction 3. And you'll see what that means in a minute. All right. More importantly, we don't make another bet. We need for this column to finish by either continuing, right, and making the jump. All right. It did make the jump, right? So now we can look back. 2 columns. The last time there was a player, it did not drop. So we are going to say that it's not going to drop for the next bet selection, which means we're going to be betting for the chop or the banker. So we are now going to be betting for the banker. And we're still at our $10. We follow the sequence of 3. We do not go up yet. Okay? And here we go. All right. We lost. Now, let me show you what happens. We finished the faction 3 sequence. The way that we play is that only after a losing sequence do we then move to the next block and we go up a unit. So our next bet is going to be 2 units, right? 2 units. And this is our second possible bet and our last bet with this column because we're only going to give it 2 shots. So we're going to again bet for the banker. But we're going to go up a unit. So now we're at a 2-unit bet. And we win. So we're going to put a W there, right? A W there. And I don't know why. I thought I did this before, guys. I apologize. Right? There we go. Now, we had 3 losses and we have 1 win. So we're still in for this 2-unit bet, but not now, right? Not now, because we finally tripped. Well, actually we are. Because it did skip over to the next one. So now we're going to look back again. The 2 that were completed. What happened to the last banker? It dropped. So we're going to be betting for a banker again. We're going to be betting for the same thing that happened to the last banker. And it's still a 2-unit bet, right? Banker. And we win. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, hold on. We had 3 losses at 1 unit. We have 2 wins at 2 units. Look, common sense. We are up. We're up over 3 units right now. Do you think we're going to continue in the money management sequence? Of course not. So do you understand with faction 3, we didn't get in trouble. It slowed us up. And when we got back to where we needed to be, we're just going to wipe out the money management and start over again. Okay? That's the beauty of the faction system. And we're combining it with this really interesting bet selection. Right? So now we completed this. We won our first bet. We are not going to be betting again here because we won. We need this column to finish so we can look back the 2. Okay. And it did not finish. We don't have a bet. We need this column to finish. Okay, it did. Now we can look back at the last 2 finished columns. What happened to the player? It dropped. We're going to bet for this player to drop. And we're back to our original $10 bet. And we win. We're not in the faction stuff because we didn't lose. We won. Look what we're up now, right? We're up 5 units. Oh, actually, we're not up 5 units. What am I saying? These were $10 units. I apologize, guys. We're up almost 3 units. I don't know what I was looking at before. I forgot we started with $10 units. So we're up almost 3 units, okay? And you guys know that follow me. In the game of Baccarat, I'm looking for 3 to 5, 3 to 6 units per shoe. That's it, okay? I don't look to continue playing and playing. So right now, I'd probably play for 1 more, but that's about it. So let's keep going so you can see how the bet selection works and the money management. All right. We can't make a bet because this column is not finished yet. That's a tie. Okay. It finished because we bounced to the right. We chopped. So now, what is our bet going to be on? Look back to banker dropped. We're going to bet for banker to drop again. So we're at our base $10 bet. And we win. All right. I would be done with this shoe. Okay? Let me make that really clear to you guys. We had no stress in this shoe. You take the money and you run. Now, it's up to you to set your win targets and do what you want. I'm just telling you my mindset when it comes to Baccarat. All right. We need to let this one finish, this column finish. It's player, so it did jump. It finished. The column finished. Look back to, you will see that it dropped the last player. So we're gonna bet for the drop again on player. We win again. Okay? We have to let this column finish. It finished. We look back at the last 2 finished. The last time that there was a banker, it dropped. So we're going to bet for the drop. All right, we lost. It triggers us into the faction system. I'm going to put an L over here, right? We're in the faction system. And with our bet selection, we're able to play 1 more, right? We're able to give it 1 more shot. That's the way we're playing it. So we're at bet. We're on banker again. We're not moving up our bet because we're using the faction system. We don't jump up immediately. And we lose. So we put an L. And you know we're in now. We're in our money management now. And we're going to complete the sequence of 3. But we're not going to complete it yet because we only give it 2 shots. Right? We only give it 2 shots. Right? We lost here because we thought that the banker was going to drop. It didn't. And then we gave it 1 more shot and it still didn't. So now we've got to let this one play out before we take our 3rd and final bet in the sequence. Okay, can't bet yet. It hasn't completed the column. Now it has because it's jumped to the right. So now we're going to have our next bet and we have to look back on the last 2 columns. The last time we had a banker, it didn't drop. So we're going to do our final bet in the sequence for money management, which is still a $10 bet, and we're going to bet that it does not drop again, which means we're betting for player. And we win. Okay. So This is a losing sequence. So we're still in the money management, which means our next bet has to be a 2-unit bet. Okay? All right. However, we can't make another bet yet because this just bounced over here. We need to make sure that this column completes. This column just got started with this player. Does everybody understand? We need this column to finish, and then we're going to look back. So this needs to jump to a banker for us to then have a bet. And it did. So now we're going to look back 2 columns, and the last time that there was a banker, it was a single. So we're going to bet for the same thing, that it stays a single, which means we're betting for player. But now we're in the second tier of our faction, which means we're going to go up a unit. Right? Betting for player, 2 units. Okay, we lost. Okay, put an L. We're ending up doing it again, right? We repeat the bet because we can do it up to 1 more time and deal. We're still looking for player. And we win. So this is good because we can check this out, right? Let's think about this for a minute. We lost 2 units. We won 1 back. So we were down 1 unit basically, right? But then we went up. Now we're down 3 units. We made 2 back. We're down 1 unit. If we're positive for the session, which we are, do we want to continue with our money management or do we want to go back to the base? Well, you know my answer. You can finish the sequence if you want, but that is not the way I play. I'm going to allow things to play out organically and get out of the money management. Okay? I don't care that I'm not back to my session high. I hope everybody understands that. So now, we need to let this one finish out. We won here, but that's not the end of the column, right? So we have to let this finish out to get another bet. Okay, and it did because it bounced, right? It finished. This column is done. So now we're going to look back at the last 2 columns, and the last time we had a red, it dropped. So we're going to play for the red again. For the banker to drop. We're going to play for the drop. I'm sorry. And we're back to our base. Okay, we lost. We're back in the money management. We're going to repeat the bet at the same amount. And we lost again. So do you see why with Baccarat, if I make those 3 to 5 units, I'm running for the hills. That's just the way I play. Okay, so we had 2 losses in a row again. The bet selection doesn't allow me to bet again. But I'm stuck now in the money management, which is no problem because we're using a conservative faction 3. Now I have to wait for this to drop. To either drop or jump, for this column to be completed. It did not complete because we're still in the column. We're still in the column. Now it jumped. The column is completed. The last time there was a banker, it was a single. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say it's going to repeat that, which means it's going to stay a single, which means we're going to bet with player. For the 3rd and final time in the faction 3, we're going to bet for player. And it wins. Okay. So this is another losing faction 3 set of boxes, right? Sequence. So in using the faction 3 rules, we would now elevate and move up here. Okay, on the next potential bet. But we have to wait for this sequence to finish. Okay, it finished. It bounced to the right. The last time there was a banker, it was a single. We're going to say it's going to do the same thing. And we're going to now bet for it to stay a single, which means a chop, which is a player. But now we have completed the sequence of 3. We need to go up a unit here. Right? We need to go up a unit on player. Right? Player. So in my case, that's $20 or 2 units. We lose. Okay. We give it one more shot, but we have to go, we don't have to go up. I'm sorry. We're already at the level 2. We stay there. All right. That's 2 losses. We can't do anything else. We have to wait for this sequence for our next trigger, right? Let's take a look. Yep, we have to have this break now, right? We have to have it break. Let's go. It breaks. So the third and final of the faction 3 bets here, right, has to be made, even though we know this is going to be a losing sequence again, right? So the last time there was a blue here, 2 over, it stayed single. So we're going to say it's going to do the same thing. So we're going to be betting our 2 units on banker. Okay, this is a completely losing sequence, right? Completely losing sequence. And you're going to have sequences like that, right? And that's why I tell you that there's no magic in this bet selection. The magic is the combination of slowing up the losing streaks by using the faction 3. Okay, so this has taken us from winning down to losing, right? So I don't want to make this video too crazy long. You could have stopped with your four units of profit, which is what I would have done. But I wanted to show you how this works, and I wanted to show you this bet selection. Now, let me just do a little bit more here. All right? I think you guys get the idea behind the bet selection. You're always having to look back at the last 2 completed columns to determine what it did last, whether it's a banker or a player, whether it dropped or it didn't drop. Right? Very, very simple. Right? I don't think I have to continue to go over that. But here's what I do want to do. I want to show you the power and introduce you to why the faction 3 is so amazing. So the usage of it for this demo is the 3 block. We utilize this and customize the faction money management, and we use 2 block, 3 block, 4 block, and 5 block if we want to slow it up even more. So you can create and customize the faction system. Now, let me show you the other thing, which we call the faction flex, which all the members, the private members of the newsletter, got this a little while back. There's a PDF that I gave them the link for the PDF for the faction flex. Okay. This is the next evolution. So you notice that once you lose, you get triggered in here, right? And I'm just going to continue to use the faction 3 version, right? Instead of the 2 or the 4 or the 5. And if you're in the first box and you get an L and a W, I told you what we normally do is we don't complete the box. We just jump out of the of the money management and go back to our base, right? If it's an L, L, And an L, well, that's a losing sequence. And we move on to the next money management block, right? All right. Or if it's an LL and a W, that's a losing sequence and we move on. But what I showed you in this video was the basic idea. The basic idea is that after you complete a losing sequence, that's not just an L and a W, right? It has to be an LLL or LLW. You're going to move on to the next block, which triggers you to increase the bet for these blocks, right? What I did was I went up by 1 unit. Now let me explain something to you that you may understand and may not initially, but the more that you think about this concept, the more you're going to understand the power of it. So let me do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do 1.5. I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do 2.5. And I'm going to do 3. All right. So what I'm showing you is another way of flexing the progressions and still using the power of the slowing up of the faction. And you can play with these numbers because that's the beauty of the customization of the faction money management concept. This is not what you're seeing on other channels where they're simply just relying on Fibonacci, modified Fibonacci, Martingale, DeLambert. You can customize the faction system by not only making it a 2-block, a 3-block, a 4-block, or a 5-block, but you can also customize the progression when you lose a block. So instead of going up to 2 units here, you can only go up by a half unit. So now this block is going to be at 1.5, right? If you were to lose this block, you could go up by a half to 2.2 or 2.5 or 3. The point is, not only do you control the slowing down using the blocks, but you're also controlling the progression after a losing set of blocks. The power behind this is incredible once you understand it. If you have something that you absolutely love the strategy, and I'm talking about for anything, by the way, the faction is not meant just for Baccarat. We use this with everything. Okay, you can customize this for any bet in any game, whatever you want. Okay, but it's amazing because we've even come further than this, where we now use this for some of our roulette systems that use dozens and columns. So remember, the dozens and columns are not even money bets if you're using 2 at a time, right? So when we use some of our methods to play 2 dozens at a time or 2 columns, when it hits the column or the dozen we're not in, we lose the 2 units, right? But when we win, we only win 1 unit. But we have over a 60% chance of winning when we use 2 columns and 2 dozens. So let me show you the secret sauce that we use when we use this with the dozens and columns, just to show you. So we're not in the money management and we're betting 1 unit, whatever that may be, $5, $10, $100 on dozen 1 and dozen 2. We lose, which means we lost 2 units. We sometimes even change the way that we use this for that specific situation, where now when we put the L here, that we lost the 2 dozen bets, we can even edit within the box, the first box. I only do this on the first box to give it a little juice because we know the power of the probabilities of some of those systems and the math behind 2 dozens and 2 columns. And now, immediately following the entry to the faction system, this next bet will be at the 1.5. So now the next 2 dozen bets will be, let's say they were $10 each, they're now going to be at $15 each here. Now, we don't go crazy. The 1.5 is for the remaining 2 if you have to do 2. Right? If this is a W, I'm still jumping back to my base with an LW break even. But if this is an L, I'm going to remain at the 1.5 for the rest of this box, right? Let's just say it looks like that. So now when you set up the structure using it for this interesting way, what could sequence number 2 look like? You can speed it up and slow it up in any way you want. This could now be a 3-unit bet box, right? So what I'm saying to you is the faction system is so different than anything anybody else is showing you, right? I've seen a couple of people showing you their 3-way, I don't go up until I lose 3 shots. They're not even using this graphic concept to its full extent, because they're only going up by the 1 unit or doubling up, doubling up, doubling up. They're not even recognizing the fact of the power of the faction system. So I wanted to give you guys that extra little tool. This has become one of the greatest ways for us to make money with even money bets, like Baccarat and like the even money bets in roulette. And yes, we even use this on some of our craps betting. Not as much, but we absolutely do. Okay? We just tweak it to either be the 3 block or the 2 block or the 5 block for the most part. Okay? So that's an introduction to the faction system and how powerful it is. And I hope you guys enjoyed the little bet selection that I showed you here as well. I think this is a pretty cool bet selection. I don't think it's better than anything else or worse than anything else. So my guys like playing this, but the secret sauce is because they're combining this with the faction, and they're only looking to grab 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 units in a shoe so they don't get in trouble. Okay? And that's it for now. So I hope you guys learned something, and we'll see you on the next video.